this is Roger, thanks for dropping by. This video is going to contain some of my small numbered genus, where I've only got a couple of plants. I know what you're all waiting for. You're waiting for the dendrobiums, aren't you? Well, I need a good run at that, to say the least. I've got a lot to say and a lot to show, and on a Sunday afternoon when I've already had one glass of wine, I'm not attempting to do my dendrobiums yet. This one was opening. I just thought I'd tuck this in because I've already done Tolumnias, and this is Jairak Flyer Black Magic. I knew it was going to be a nice dark one, but with that offset of the bright yellow in the middle, that's an attractive flower. Okay, let's get going. Okay, this is my Paphiopedilums. This is a good news and a bad news. The good news is some of them are doing quite well. Bad news is I got some funny sort of thing on the leaves. I'll go into it later. And the other bit of bad news is they're not my favourite plants, and they sit down the bottom of the grow room and almost have to fend for themselves. They're so slow growing, I find them painful. When they're doing reasonably well and you've got a nice specimen sized plant with multiple new growths, multiple flowers, they're a marvel. They're a joy to behold. But when you're trying to get to that stage and you just get one new growth and then you get an older growth dies back, you still end up with the same size plant. It's quite difficult to get these to get up to specimen size. Anyway, I'll go over them. This is going to be a brief section. This is my favourite by far. This is a beautiful plant. Look at the markings on those leaves and look at the colour underneath, almost black. This is a beautiful plant, and this is, how do I say it, delenatii vinicolour, which is the dark coloured form of this particular path. And I've shown you that one first because it's not mine, it's my daughter's, and it's probably the best plant I've got. She picked a good one there when last visit we had. Our coach trip was to Burnham Nurseries, as you can see by the tag, and she picked a good one there. This was in amongst single growth plants. This one's got 2 growths on it, and she still paid the single growth price. She's got the eye, she's got it. This is my version, and this is the alba form, so this has an almost pure white flower. Again, very pretty leaves. I do like this plant, but look at it, it's a single growth, and it's grown those 2 leaves quite quickly recently, which means it's going to flower. It will push a bud up soon, and that flower will last hopefully a nice long time. And then I'll get another growth and I'll wait painfully for it to flower. But nonetheless, that's actually a good plant. I haven't got a clue what the roots are like because it's still in a non-see-through pot. So we'll have to wait and see when I dig that out. But I'm going to wait till it's flowered. It's a miniature, as you can see, size of my hand. Small plant. Doesn't take up a lot of space and I can ignore it for days at a time. Next, this is what I call a stupid Paphiopedilum. It's got no brain. This is the older part of the plant, and this is what I was saying. This is spots galore, the hybrid of multiple hybrids. The older part of the plant's dying back, so it's not going to support the rest of the plant. The next growth in, that one, that's flowered. It had a beautiful flower. I'll put a pop-up of the pictures as I go along. Most of my paths have flowered for me, so I have got pictures that I'm happy with. And it's got quite a nice strong growth. But look where the growth came out. Halfway up the side of the previous growth. So its roots aren't going to get into the media. I just don't know what to do with it. If I bury it, I'll kill the old part of the plant. But then I'll get some roots on the new growth and I'll save it. So I'm in a quandary with that. Unfortunately, it's not due to be repotted. I'd have to dig it out just for the sake of it. It's a good strong new growth, but it's going to have trouble with the roots. I tried to get moss up around the base of it, but I don't know. Silly plant, silly place to put out a new growth. You're supposed to grow short rhizomes at soil level, not sticking up in the air like that. Next one. This is Magical Venus. Now this is a little bit more like it. This is not a bad plant. but you can see a leaf has been hacked off. The reason I hacked that off is because it had a far worse version of that. This is the bad news. I'm afraid you're going to have to put up with the foggers because it's hot in here and my plants will suffer if I shut everything down. I've already turned the fans off, which I'm reluctant to do in this heat. Nonetheless, I had this on several plants. It appeared in the winter, which is obviously when the temperatures are low and the light levels are even lower, especially as these things sit on the floor. But, you know, if any of you have ever seen this, it's dry, but it's an orangey, rusty coloured patching thing. And it's happened on several of them. Nonetheless, that flowered nicely, and it's got a new growth coming, so in how many months' time, probably about 10, I may get a new flower. We shall see. This one had a nice new growth, and we had a visitor, a slimy little visitor that took that growth out. But I'm pleased to say the plant has managed to find the energy to put up another one, a second one. That would have been the one, wouldn't it? If that had pushed up 2 growths, then this would have been pushing up towards my ultimate goal, which is more than 1 new growth a year. Again, this one's flowered. This has got no name. It's a hybrid between Warden times Raisin wine. I just said times, didn't I? Cross with Raisin wine, but it's a no-name hybrid, combination of 2 other hybrids. Nice flower though. This is another one that got the orangey stuff on it. You can still see residual signs of it down in that leaf crack there. Plus I had to take the end of that leaf off. And even on the new growth, 1 leaf suffered. And I had to take that off for the sake of the growth. That's not a strong plant, and it pushed its new growth out quite a long way from the old one, which is very unusual for Paphiopedilums. That's Evelyn Rollke. Beautiful flower. And it lasted for months and months. So when they do flower, they're not bad. But that's not exactly an attractive plant. But then whatever that orange thing was seems to have stopped. It seemed to have stopped it in its tracks. That leaf's got no worse. That leaf I took off. And that leaf I took off. So maybe it'll hang in there. This one is probably my best plant, and that's probably because it's new. This is the one that's been in flower on the side there for a very long time. This is a species, this is maudiae, and it has very, very attractive leaves. I would keep this plant for the leaves, even if it didn't flower. It's beautiful. And it's a strong plant. That new growth there hasn't flowered yet. And it's got another new growth coming up there that obviously hasn't flowered yet. It's tiny. So it's doing okay. The 2 dead flower spikes you can see there, it was in flower when I got it, and I was crafty. I searched the whole set at Burnham Nurseries to find one that had a secondary growth with a bud coming. So I had 2 for the price of 1, as they say. Always look round when you're looking for plants. You might just see one that should have been in the more expensive section and they've missed it. So basically I had 2 consecutive flowers on that one, and they lasted a long time, and they are attractive flowers and a very attractive healthy plant, not like some of the others. This one is an oddity. I went to a nursery that specialised in Paphiopedilums, called Ratcliffe's, and due to what shall we say, relationship problems, that actual nursery is now defunct. They've sold everything off, and I took my daughter along for their closing down sale. Let's get rid of everything dirt cheap, we thought. And would you believe it, a lot of the prices hadn't even been reduced. They didn't even know how to close down properly. Anyway, it was a specialist Paphiopedilum hybridizer. And this thing was in the cheapy section. Again, it's got 2 growths on it, and neither have flowered. So in theory, there's a stronger growth there and a slightly weaker growth behind. I may get consecutive flowering on this when it finally gets around to doing something. It's Marcella noble, or possibly nobly. And it's a hybrid between those two. You can read those off yourself. So it's one of their named hybrids that they've actually registered. And last but not least, in this section, this is Macabre, and this has wonderful flowers on, and basically the old growth is virtually lost. And this is what I'm getting at. The old growth now only has 2 leaves left, and they're probably going over soon. Yes, it's got a lovely strong new growth, but when that older growth goes over, it's still a single growth Paphiopedilum. It's not heading towards a specimen plant, it's just going to be another single growth and one single flower. So as you can see, they're not my favourite orchids, but they do have lovely leaves. I suppose they've got something going for them. And when they do flower, the flowers last for ages, so you sort of get your money's worth. They're just a tedious plant to look after. They're not my favourites. Anyway, that's my Paphiopedilums. Like them or love them, or leave them. Takes your choice. Okay, Restrepias. I've only got 2. I will be getting more. I'm growing to these. When I first read up on these, I thought, nah, I can't look after these. They like 90% plus humidity in their ideal world. They're not a warm growing plant. They're at the bottom end of intermediate into the cool section really, but it's that really high humidity that they crave. And you know, when you're growing intermediate, if you've got 90% humidity as well, then you are probably going to start getting mould problems and things like that. So anyway, this is falkenburgii. See if I've said that right. Yes, falkenburgii. It's a lovely flower, and it flowers on and off all year round. At the moment, it's in one of its off stages. It's going mad. It's chucking new growth and kikis up all over the place. That is the way they grow. They do throw kikis out, leaf joints. You see behind an old leaf, it pushes out a new growth. And I know these leaves look kinked, and that might, for people who grow oncidiums, they might think, oh no, I've got crinkled leaves. But they do straighten up. They do straighten up. They are okay. They will push out. Okay. If it had the really high humidity, the chances are they would start straighter and not have to straighten out. That's the thing you suffer if you drop your humidity down. These will take nearly 100% humidity. They really like their moisture. As far as care is concerned, don't let them dry out. They're in that category. Very, very fine root systems and no pseudobulbs. Do not dry out. But the flowers are lovely. And as I said, it's got a straggly growth habit, but the amount of new growth on that I'm well pleased with. This is my new one. I saw this at Burnham's on the coach trip, so it's another Burnham's. This is antennifera, and its variety Hemsleyana, something like that. Very poorly written label. Come on, Burnham's, get your act together. But it was a good looking plant, and it was in the wrong section. It was in the cheaper section. This should have been in the more expensive category. You have to look out for these things. I know it's nasty to do that sort of thing to a friend that's also a trader, but you know, their problem, not mine. And this one had kikis all over the place. They've all been broken off, and they've all been stuck around the edge of the pot. So hopefully most of those will catch. And again, a very attractive flower. Let me just get that one out of the way and show you this thing. I haven't got a clue what to do with this, or what I'm supposed to do with it. It's a Restrepioides, and it's Dragonstone. They're going around. I know others have got some. It has put up new growths. It's got quite a few new leaves. Yeah, so it's got some new leaves. It's got very long pendulous arching flower spikes with not very big flowers but quite colourful, sort of waxy looking flowers, according to the pictures. I wouldn't know personally. So a strange plant. As I say, I'm not quite sure what to do with it. The one thing I know I have to do is get it out of that pot. It's been in there since I got it. It feels heavy and it shouldn't do. It was watered a while ago, so it's holding too much water. So it needs to come out. I need to have a look round in the pot and see what's going on. But the fact that it starts with Restrepi, I keep it with my Restrepias, even though it doesn't look the same. A strange plant. Any advice in the comments on what I'm supposed to do with that would be greatly appreciated. Thank you. Right, my Maxillarias next. Maxillarias in the mist. As I say, I'm not turning the foggers off. This one you've seen before. This is tenuifolia. It's now decided to attach itself. It's a mounted version that fell off of a larger plant. And yes, it has flowered, but mine don't open very well. Very pretty flower. Very pretty flower. And it's doing well on its mount. It's pushed out loads of new growth. There's still loads more coming. I don't actually see any more buds at the moment. I think it's probably just going to be those two, but relatively it's a young plant. Anyway, and it doesn't smell of coconut. Everybody else's does, but mine doesn't. Nonetheless, very pretty flower. So that's that one. This one you've seen before. This is Maxillaria sophronites. It's an unusual growth habit. Like most Maxillarias, it tries to escape. And this one's growing up its mount quite nicely. It's just dropped its only flower this morning. And the new growth are pushing out nice roots that are attaching to the bark. This is one of those plants, they say, once you get it going, it's unstoppable. It just goes mad. Well, yeah, that's going mad. 1, 2, 3, 4 new growths across the top. A couple more tucked in there. And a couple more down there. So lots of new growths. If only they would all flower at the same time. Nonetheless, a nice mounted plant. It's quite an attractive plant, whether it's in flower or not. I like that one. This one is Maxillaria picta. This has a very nice scented flower on it. Very young plant, relatively recent acquisition, but it's pushing out 2 new growths there. They're quite nice, and another new growth on that bulb there. So it's doing okay. It's just been repotted. It didn't have the most amazing root system, but at least it had one. Unlike some of the Cattleyas I've been doing lately. We'll get onto them later. They're in the doghouse, most of those. Anyway, it's coming on. I would expect that to flower next year in its appropriate season, whenever that is. I haven't looked it up. So that's the easy ones. And then there's the beast. This is again Maxillaria tenuifolia. That's where the other piece that was mounted broke off of when I was repotting it. It's a beast of a plant. It grows very, very well. In fact, too well. It grows so well it decides it can't be bothered to flower. So not a light on this one yet. But it's a good plant. And I'm reasonably certain I know what's wrong with it. It's not getting enough light. It got tucked away on a lower shelf because it's got so big. It used to hang up near the roof. You can see where the wires used to be in the corners of the basket. But it takes up so much space. It makes life difficult for itself. But it's a good strong plant. I wouldn't want to get rid of it, but I need to look after it better than I am now if I'm going to get it to do better than it does. You know, if all of these new growths decided to flower, that would be one hell of a spectacle. It's a strong plant, but like like the nature of its its growth habit. It's doing its best to escape that basket. It's trying to get out as fast as it can. But nonetheless, a wonderful plant. It would be nice if it had some flowers. So that's my big Maxillaria tenuifolia. This is my only Encycia in the mist, and that's been renamed now. It's now called pseudo-Encycia. So it's a pretend Encycia, not a real one. I love this renaming stuff. It's got a good leading growth on it. It's got a leafless bulb and an old bulb. It's got what I hope is going to be a nice strong new growth there. It went mad a couple of months ago and decided to put some new roots out, and as new roots go, as you can see, it went mad. It really did throw out a shed load of roots, and I hope that was preceding what is going to be an obvious new growth there, I believe, and what may be a second new growth there. They are strange. They start really thin and wishy-washy and wispy as though they're not going to do anything, and then as you can see they start to thicken up, and what happens next I don't know, because I haven't had it long enough. So that's my Encycia, and its tag is over here because I've only just written it, so I had to go and look up what it's actually called. Prismatocarpa, Encycia prismatocarpa. It's a nice plant. It's coming on, obviously not flowered yet. And then we've got Epidendrums. This is a strange plant. It was one of those that you get to bump up the value of postage. You know, when you buy on eBay or internet type things, the postage is a killer for one plant. But if there's another plant sat there that looks quite good, and you can just throw that in if it's going cheap, and it sort of halves the postage. You can see how my mind works, can't you? This is doing wonderful things on the root front. It has pushed out some nice new roots. But there's no sign of a new cane yet. When I got it, it had that old cane and the other one that's starting to look a bit past its days now. And this cane was mine that grew sort of later last year. It's a young plant. I don't expect much of that yet. Quite honestly, I haven't even got a clue what it looks like. But that's Epidendrum nocturne, that one's called. Sorry, nocturnum. Everything has to have or Anna on the end. Anyway, that's that one. And my only other Epidendrum is, I call it a rescue, because I used to have a giant one of these, and I mean giant. It was like 3 foot tall and had 20 odd canes, some of which were always in flower. And I liked it, but it went over. It just suddenly declined really badly, so I took a piece off and stuck it in a pot. It's an unnamed hybrid. The flowers look like radicans, except for they're a pale orangey yellow colour. They're not even a brilliant colour really. I'm not quite sure why I saved that. But I don't like losing the plant completely, and it needs to push up some new canes. It needs to do something now. It's been in that pot since the autumn, when I threw the old bit away, the giant thing that just for some reason just decided to keel over. Possibly related to bamboo, you know, and once it flowers it dies. Stupid plant. Anyway, that's what's remaining of it. So that's that section. Right, as this video contains the sort of genus that I've only got a couple of, I thought we'd include this one here. I am in the I Kill Zygo club. I'm a founder member, I believe, along with some other well-known YouTubers, but this one's hanging in there. It's due to be repotted, so maybe its days are numbered, but it's still looking good. Its flowers went over a while ago. My only Zygopetalum, and I do like it. It's a good, clean plant. It's got lovely green, healthy leaves, and it's up to stuff. It's doing things. Little things poking out of the last flowered growth. Now, they're probably new growths, but you know, what's that? There's a growth there and something just above it. I'm not sure. I might. And there's 2 on that side. So that one recently flowered bulb has got 2 little shoots there, where my thumb is. Hope you can see those. And around this side it's got an obvious growth of some sort and another little something just above it. Everything else is quiet. So, not quite sure what this is going to do next. What I do know is that is coconut type stuff and I don't like it. So I'm going to risk repotting that soon. It's on the list. So this might be your last chance to see it, because it's often following a repot that mine just keel over, they just don't make it. But I'm hoping with new growths coming out, and I know there's a good root system in there because I can see the top of it. They're good roots poking down in there. I believe that's been planted too high. That, you know, these things are, they're not terrestrials, but they're not far off it. They're not real epiphytes hanging up in the trees. They're more a leaf litter sort of plant, so I'd say semi-terrestrial. But the different species come from different parts of the forest, and this is a hybrid, so it has no real home, does it? So anyway, hopefully this one will make it. Zygopetalum in the mist. Alright, thanks for watching part 3 of my main update. It's going to take a while, you know. I think we might get up to 6 or 7 and it'll be June before I've finished. I can't film every day, it's just not possible, but I'm doing my best. So that was part 3, a few bits and pieces, a sort of scatty video rather than just sticking to one genus. But then we all have collections that have got perhaps just one of a certain type of plant. Like everybody should have a Zygopetalum. I don't see why I should be the only one that kills them. So go and get your Zygopetalum and try and do better than I do. Anyway, thanks for watching. Bye now.